my crafty friends, it's me Lisa, the DIY Diva, and I've got a bunch of easy, beginner-friendly Dollar Tree crafts for you to decorate your home. So let's get started.
It all just goes away. The things I plan to say, oh baby.
I'm going to use this sign from the Dollar Tree, "Come gather at our table." It's really cute, and that is going to be the bottom of my project. But I'm going to go ahead and remove that gather, and it did stay in one piece, so maybe I can use that in a future project. Then I took some little wood turnings and I glued those to the bottom of the sign, or I guess the top of the sign where the lettering is, because like I said, this is going to be the bottom, and these are going to be the feet for my tray. And I love making riser trays like these. They're so easy, and the Dollar Tree has so many different things that make it really easy to make trays like this. And the wood glue is so affordable. I did take that and just fill in all around the corners of the sign because I don't want it to fall down. I need to make sure it's going to be strong enough to hold what I'm going to be putting onto my tray. And I wanted to give this tray a more springtime or summertime feel, so I painted it with terracotta paint. And I believe this is Anita's acrylic paint that I got at Hobby Lobby in the color terracotta. It did take several coats of the paint to make sure everything was covered. I didn't want any of that original sign to show through, so I just did one coat, let it dry, did another coat, and then a third coat. And this is the end result, and I have a little terracotta tray. But again, I do find that this acrylic paint does scratch easily, so I did coat it with a nice heavy coat of Mod Podge. And I find that the Mod Podge works really well for coating any project where you could potentially have some scratching occur. It seals the project and protects it from little dings. Next, I got these at the Dollar Tree. They're a set of 3 for $1.25, and they are terracotta. They do have some dings in them, so they're not exactly perfect, but I spray painted them all with this white high gloss paint that I got at Home Depot. I found that the Home Depot spray paint is very affordable and a lot less expensive than most of the spray paints today. Then I just took some faux greenery and some little white flowers and put them into the terracotta pots. And I've created this adorable terracotta tray, and it holds these little planters perfectly. Now for this project, we're going to make a planter, and I'm going to use this metal planter that I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using this spackling to cover the entire planter. The spackling is a little bit messy, so I did put on some gloves to keep my hands nice and clean, and while I'm doing this, I'm putting a pattern into the spackling onto the planter. Because when I'm making planters like this, I love texture, and the spackling compound really does give a lot of texture to a project. And while you're watching me spackle, why not hit that subscribe button? Then click the bell notification. That way you'll be alerted every time I have a new video coming out. Here is the texture that I was able to create on this project just by using some spackling. Isn't that pretty? And once the spackling was dry, I did go ahead and paint that with a soft yellow paint. And the spackling itself is not very strong, so I want to make sure that it is going to stay in place for the next step of my project. So I did give it a coat of sealer with some Mod Podge. Mod Podge is the best sealer. It's so affordable. And once that was dry, I took some white chalk paint, but I only want the white paint to go on the raised portions of the spackling, so I'm not going to use a lot of paint. And then I'm just using a circular motion, working my way around the planter to highlight all of that texture. It also really lightens up that yellow, so it's not quite so yellow. Once the planter was dry, I had put some floral foam into the center of it, And then using these pretty pinkish hydrangeas that I got at Michael's, I put them and the leaves into the planter. I love how that looks. They're so pretty. And this is a close-up of the texture of the planter. I love painting like this. It really gives some dimension to a project, and I think it looks great. Now for this project, I'm going to use this Dollar Tree vase or candle holder. I really like that style, but for my vase, I don't need that lip. So I'm going to secure some white cotton rope to the vase because I want it to be all the same size, as I'm going to wrap this cotton rope all around the vase. So I wanted to make sure that that lip that was on this little candle holder was gone. So I filled that in first with the piece of the rope, and then I secured a piece of the cotton rope to the bottom of the candle holder. Now, I don't think there's really any right or wrong way how to do this. Sometimes I start at the top, sometimes I start at the bottom. It just depends on my mood more than anything. But for this one, I did start at the top of the planter, and then I worked my way around, working with small sections of the rope as I glued it onto the glass candle holder. I think the most important thing is just to go slowly until you get it finished. Don't rush the process. And once I got to the top, I did want to cover everything. So I don't want to see any of that original candle holder. So I went ahead and glued the rope to itself. So this looks like it is completely made of rope. Then I found these Dollar Tree floral pieces, and I really like them. They are so pretty and spring-like, and they're really nice quality. They look like they would come from Michael's. They didn't look like they would come from the Dollar Tree. So I separated each of the floral stems, and using my Husky nipping tools, I cut them down to the size that I wanted them to be. I did end up using 2 bundles of flowers for this project. And to give it more of a farmhouse feel, I wrapped the stems with some jute twine. And to keep my stems standing upright in my vase, I took a pool noodle and then cut it down so that it would fit into my vase. And then all I had to do was put in the pretty little flowers. And they're standing up just fine in the center, but you can still see down into the center. So I took a little bit of Spanish moss and I pushed that down into my planter. That way you won't see that pool noodle. And here is my adorable little farmhouse planter for spring. There's another rope basket that I made. I think these are so pretty, and they would be a perfect addition for your farmhouse spring decor. Now for this project, what I'm going to be doing is making terracotta planters using these round boxes from the Dollar Tree. I did go ahead and paint them. You've seen me paint 100 times. You don't need to see me paint them. So I painted the main section white with chalk paint. Then I used terracotta on the bottom, which is the lid. So the lid would have been on the top, but now it's going to be the bottom to make this look like a really fancy planter. I was having a difficult time making the lid fit onto the bottom of the round box. Round box? How can a box be round? But this one's round. And I tried the pool noodle, but that wasn't really working very well. So I did take some thin slices of floral foam and put that into the bottom of the lid. And when I saw that would work, I secured it in place with some hot glue. The floral foam is nice because you can kind of smush it down, and it worked perfect for this project. So now these round Dollar Tree containers actually look like really nice planters. And using some more of that floral foam, I secured a big chunk into the center of the planters before putting my greenery in. And these are the planters all completed with the flowers. I think they look so nice. They definitely don't look like they came from the Dollar Tree, and they look like fancy planters. We're going to use these Dollar Tree signs. And the first thing we need to do is remove everything from the back, because the back is going to be the front. So the first thing I did was remove all of those sticky adhesive backings as well as the hangers, including the staples. And now I flip the signs over, and then using my trusty wood glue and some jumbo craft sticks, I'm going to take these jumbo craft sticks, and using that Dollar Tree wood glue, I'm going to secure these two signs together. So I made sure both of the signs were lined up equally. And thanks to these jumbo craft sticks, these two signs are going to become one. Then I took a piece of paper from one of those fancy notebooks that you get at Hobby Lobby, cut it in half, and then I put that over top of the jumbo craft sticks, made sure it was going to stay, and then I added a bunch of weight to my sign. First I used a piece of wood, then I added a bunch of those scrapbook paper pads to add a lot of weight to really make sure that those jumbo craft sticks were going to stay in place. Now, these are the really cool part. These are some farm animals that I got from the Dollar Tree, but I didn't want to use them with those wooden bases, so I carefully removed the bases from each of the animals. And they didn't come out perfectly, so I did use my little tiny table saw and I cut off the excess piece of wood from each of the farm animals. And once the glue was done drying on my sign, then I took some chalk paint and I just literally poured it out onto the sign. Then I took a 1-inch paintbrush and I spread out all of that chalk paint onto the sign. And this is the best part. I'm using one of those palettes from the Dollar Tree, and while the paint is wet, I'm dragging that palette across the painted surface. And can you see how cool this looks? By doing this, I was able to make these Dollar Tree signs look like they were a piece of wood. This gives a lot of nice texture to the sign itself, and I think it looks really cool. And once it was dry, then I took my farm animals and using the Dollar Tree wood glue, I secured each animal to the sign. I started with the cow on the bottom. Then I moved on to the pig. He's going to be in the center. And the little chicken is going to be on top. All right, so my sign has had plenty of time to dry. And since I have so much of this rope, I think I do want to put a border around the edges and give it just a little bit of something extra. But I want to make sure I'm going to keep it inside. So it's like 1/4 of an inch on the sides. So I think right now what I'm going to do is go ahead and attach this rope to the sign itself. And I'm just going to use a little bit of Elmer's glue to secure down any of those loose pieces because then it'll dry clear. So now all that's left for me to do is to put a hanger on my farm animal sign and then I can go hang it up. All right, so here is the awesome little farm animal sign hanging up in my dining room. I am so happy with how this turned out. I think this is just adorable and I really like that faux painting technique. I want to make like an enameled bowl. So I have a bowl from the Dollar Tree and a candlestick, and they look like they are going to fit perfectly. So then I took some chalk paint and I painted each piece. So I painted the bowl first. Inside and out, the entire bowl got a coat of chalk paint. I did end up going back and doing a second coat after the first coat had dried. Next, I did the same thing on the candlestick. The entire candlestick is getting painted with the chalk paint, and it also got 2 coats of paint. Now, once both pieces had dried, I took a little bit of black acrylic paint and I just started painting little patterns onto each piece. So the candlestick is what I started with first. I want it to look like the white is enamel that is worn off from a black underbase. And at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is going to turn out. And then I just reminded myself to trust the process and just continue on. If it didn't turn out how I wanted, I could always start over. But I think that looks pretty cool. And once all of the black paint had dried, I did take some E6000 and I put that around the top of the candle holder. Now, if you can see how easy it is for me to squeeze out this E6000 glue, it's because I have one of those locks on the end of the tube. Then I took the bowl and put it right in the center of the candle holder and set it to dry. And this is my enamel look planter. I think it looks so pretty. I didn't know what to put in it, so I used some faux rose heads, and I think it looks so pretty. So for this next project, I'm going to be making a tray, and I'm going to start with 6 of these Dollar Tree signs. There are 6 of them. You can make it as big as you want, but 6 signs seem to work really well for me. So once I had the signs, I decided to sand the back of the signs because the back side is going to be the top of my tray. And when I removed the stickers, there was a little bit of adhesive left on it, and I wanted to try and remove that as best as I could. So once I had the adhesive removed, then I glued these 6 signs together using the Dollar Tree wood glue. This stuff is so strong and it works so well. I probably used a little more than I really needed to, but I just lined up each of these signs and then secured all 6 of them together. Then I had this harvest sign, and it was a little bit thinner than the other sign. So this is going to be perfect for the side rails of my tray. So I measured it and then cut it in half. Now these are going to be the sides. And once I had them positioned how I wanted them to be, I went ahead and put a lot of glue onto the signs, and then I secured them to the top. So on top of all of those 6 pieces of wood, that's where I secured these 2 pieces on either side. And I tried to make sure that they were equal on both sides. And once I had the sides on, then I let everything dry overnight. Next, I took some white chalk paint and I painted the entire surface with the white chalk paint. You could use whatever color you want, but I really like the white because it basically goes with everything in my decor. And I found that even if I'm using a really thick coat of paint, the chalk paint is very forgiving and it always seems to look nice. And once you're done with the painting process, you just let it dry. So I think it's always better to be safe than sorry and let it dry a little bit longer than you think because it will make your project that much better. And I forgot to film when I added the drawer handles to the sides of the tray, but I found these drawer handles at Hobby Lobby. They were on clearance, and I really like the look that it gives to my finished tray. And this is a super simple project that you can do over a weekend, especially giving it time to dry. I love this tray and I use it all the time in my decorating. This is actually in my living room right now with a couple of pieces that I found at Home Goods of all places. They have some really nice accent pieces there that are very affordable. And the tray on the bottom just kind of ties the look together. All right, now I found these adorable chickens at the Dollar Tree a while ago, and I don't know if they still have them, but I never knew what I really wanted to do with these pieces. And I started thinking about it, and I thought these would look really cute if they were facing each other on like signs. And I had this farmhouse style material in my stash. Again, I wasn't sure what I was going to use it for, and I thought this would be perfect. So I just cut out a square, it's more of a rectangle, of the fabric for each of the chickens. Then I used craft glue to put a nice coat of glue on the top of the chicken. And then I just laid the material over top and secured everything down. Now that glue will actually dry clear, so even though it's coming through the material, it's not that big of a deal. Now on the other chicken, I wanted to make sure it was facing the opposite of the first chicken that I did, and then I repeated the process of putting the glue on and then the material. And once the glue had dried, I came back and removed a lot of the excess material because I'm just going to fold this over the back of the chicken. And if I would have left all of that material, it would have been a little bit bulky for the sign that I want to put this on. So I just cut it down, and then I cut little like lines in the material so it would make it easier to fold onto the backside of the metal chicken. Then I used my hot glue gun and just folded all of that material onto the back. Now I could have just cut it out, but that would have been a lot more challenging, and I'm not the greatest when it comes to cutting out material. So for me, this seems to work a lot better just to fold everything over and secure it to the back side. And that way none of that metal will be showing. It'll just be the material. And I love the frames at the Dollar Tree. And I haven't seen these in a while, but when I saw them, I knew they would be perfect for a farmhouse type project. So first, I removed the glass, and then I took this Dollar Tree wallpaper and I just secured this to the back. So I'm still going to put that back onto the frame, and that's what I'm going to secure this wallpaper with. And this wallpaper is super strong. It's like a giant sticker, super, super sticky. So once I had an idea of what I wanted to do, then I just committed to it, and I just stuck the back of the frame onto the wallpaper. And then I trimmed the excess away. And it doesn't have to be perfect because the edges of the wallpaper will actually fit into the frame as well. And because I have 2 chickens, I did this with 2 frames and the wallpaper. So I probably could have done 1 sheet of wallpaper for both frames, but I just used 1 for each because it made it easier. And once I had that wallpaper cut down, I just put the back onto the picture frame. And then I just bent down those little tabs very carefully, because if you're not careful with those, they will pop out or rip apart the frame. And here are my frames with the wallpaper inside, and here are my chickens. I'm just going to place them onto the frames and make sure I'm happy with how they look. Then I'm going to secure each chicken onto that wallpaper in the center. I love this project because number 1, it is super easy. You could probably get this done in an afternoon. Such an easy project, but it really looks nice. And here are my chickens. Oh my goodness, aren't these adorable? How is that for farmhouse? I love how these turned out. I think they'll look great in my kitchen, but they actually look really nice in my craft room too. Now, these Dollar Tree toys are so incredible. Hopefully your Dollar Tree has them, because they have a wood dowel for the handle, which is perfect for so many crafts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove the top, that plastic part. And I have this awesome little screwdriver set that I got at the Dollar Tree. This lives in my craft room. This is such a good find. I would highly encourage you, if your Dollar Tree has them, pick one up. So I just removed the shovel and the rake, and then I'm measuring off on these wooden dowels. I'm measuring at 6 inches, and I can get 2 6-inch pieces on each of these dowels. Now these dowels I'm going to be making a table with. I've seen other people make these tables, which are kind of like risers, and they are so cute, I decided to make one for myself. Now this is a little bit different than I've seen other people do it because we're all unique and we're all original with how we do crafts, right? And for me, something like this just worked perfectly. If you can't find the square dowels, these tool handles are awesome. So I have 4 of the 6-inch dowels cut, and then I also have 6 of the remaining pieces down that I cut down to 2 inches. And I'm just going to lightly paint all of these with this white paint. Oh, and I should have said, I also sanded down everything after I cut out the dowels. But I was really careful when I was painting. This is just white acrylic paint, and I just wanted to give a nice light coat of the paint to each of the dowels, making sure to cover the entire length of the dowel. The top and the bottom don't really matter too much. So then I found these signs at the Dollar Tree. These are so nice. It's a set of 2 signs. So you get 2 in a package. So $1.25 for 2 signs is perfect. And I got 2 sets of them because I want the larger signs. Then I'm going to take this Hobby Lobby paint and I'm going to paint the 2 larger signs. I'm going to paint the top and the sides of each sign. It did take 2 coats of paint to get a nice thick coverage of the paint so you wouldn't see any of the sign underneath. And once they were dry, it was time to assemble my table. So for the bottom part of the table, I'm going to be using the 2-inch pieces of the dowel, and I'm going to put 1 in each corner. So I'm going to be using 4. I cut 2 extra out just to make sure I had the right sizes and that they all matched up and they were the same size because I don't want my table to lean. So that is the bottom of my table. But now I'm also going to have a top portion of the table. So I took the 4 6-inch pieces and I put 1 dowel in each corner of the second sign. And once that hot glue had time to set up, I put a little bit of hot glue on each bottom of those longer legs. And then I very carefully placed that so it would match up on the other table. So this is kind of like a farmhouse style table, which also acts as a riser. And look at how cute this is. I love this. It's so much fun to use on a tiered tray or even just like this. I could even see dressing this up like a miniature potting table for the spring and summertime. And the bead strands that were on that table, I actually made them, and a bunch of beads that I already had. Now to thread the beads, it's a lot easier if you have a large needle, and these needles are perfect. They are so awesome. Look at this. Watch me thread that jute right through there. First try, perfect. I will leave a link to those crafting needles in the description box below. If you do a lot of work with jute twine and you're threading for beads, these things are incredible. So once I had the jute twine the length that I wanted it to be, I tied a knot into the end and then I just started threading the beads. I didn't want to have the beads all be the same size because I have all of these beads and I wanted to make them look a little bit different. So I just played around with different sizes of beads to get the look that I wanted. And then I threaded the beads onto the jute. So once I had the pattern down for the first run of the beads, then I just duplicated the same process until I got the bead strand to the length that I wanted it to be. I really like this look. It's a little bit different than a lot of the farmhouse style beads that you see. And once I had the bead strand to the size I wanted it, then I just did a square knot on the other end. I did give it a little bit of room to play because I don't want them so tight that they're not going to move around. So that is my smaller strand of beads, and I also did a larger strand of beads with a different pattern. And I also wanted to make some tassels for the beads. Now this is a really simple way to make tassels. You just wrap the jute twine around your fingers, and then once you have it to the thickness that you want it to be, take another piece of the twine and just tie it into a square knot around one side of the jute that you just wrapped around your fingers. Then just cut the second loop, and you should have something that looks like that, kind of like a bow. You could probably use it as a bow if you wanted to. And then you just fold it in half and cut away the excess so that all of the ends match. And I think you can see how easy of a tassel that is, but it probably won't stay flat like that. So it does help if you use a little bit of hot glue on that folded corner. And then just pinch it into the center, and that will make the hot glue stick to both sides of your tassels. This is a really simple way to make tassels. And then I used a little bit of hot glue just to secure them onto the ends of the bead strands. And here they are, all finished. I really like the way this looks. I don't have excess jute or anything. It looks like it's just going into the beads themselves. And they are such a nice little accent piece. And these are so easy to make. Now, have you seen these boxes at Dollar Tree? They're actually really nice. So this is like the medium size box, and it's a rectangle, but I don't want to use it as a box. I want to use this as a planter. So I'm going to take my hot glue and I'm going to put random lines of the hot glue all over the box. I'm going to do all sides of the box, the front, the back, and either side. And I did use both of my hot glue guns. So I have two different sizes of the hot glue strands. They almost look like strings going around the box. And I know right now it is kind of hard to see all of the different glue that's on this box, and you can pretty much only see the box. But with the magic of spray paint, it will totally cover all of those beautiful colors on the box, and it will be just a solid gray. And the spray paint that I used, I believe it's called True Gray, and it is in a satin finish. It did take several coats of this spray paint to completely cover this box. But now you can really see all of the different strands that are on the box, and it's looking more like a planter. And I found these really pretty faux plants at the at-home store, and they were so affordable. They were $2.99 for each of those bundles. So I do have 3 bundles of those faux plants or silk flowers that I'm going to put into this planter. I think that looks really pretty, but I wanted to add a little bit something extra. So I had some other silk flowers, and I just kind of tucked those down into the greenery. And this is how it turned out. I really like this little planter. It does not look like a Dollar Tree box anymore, and I really like the flowers that I chose to go into my planter as well. So I have this plastic decanter from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to make this look like a hobnail style vase. So I'm just taking my smaller hot glue gun and I'm putting drops of the hot glue onto the decanter. Now this decanter does have a little bit of a pattern around the center of it, but in the end that is not going to matter because I'm also going to put some ribbon on this decanter, which is now going to be a vase. So once I was done with the hot glue, then I took it out into the garage and added a few coats of white spray paint. So if you're going to do this project, I would encourage you to do light coats of paint and let that dry in between. Don't be in a hurry. And here is my hobnail vase. I think that actually looks pretty just like it is, but I'm going to take this Dollar Tree ribbon and I'm going to create a bow to go around the center portion of the vase. So I just took some hot glue and secured a piece of ribbon around the center. That's where I want my bow to be. I did remove the excess ribbon and then use some hot glue just to seal the ribbon down. And I think I've actually gotten a little bit better at making bows. So this is that same Dollar Tree ribbon. And what I'm going to do is make 2 loops and kind of tuck the tails down because I want to see that pretty lace on the front of the bow. Next, I took a pipe cleaner and I just tied it around the center of my bow. This is a really easy way to make a bow. I'm so happy that I figured out an easy way to make a bow. And to cover up that pipe cleaner, I just used some more hot glue. I took a little remnant of the burlap portion of the ribbon and wrapped that around the center. And I did want the bottom portion of the ribbon to have tails, and I didn't want to bend it, so I just cut a triangle portion out of the center. Then I used a little bit more hot glue on the back of my bow and secured it in place onto my vase. I love that. An easy bow. And here is the finished vase. Again, I really liked how that bow turned out. I think it looks great. And the vase itself looks great too, with some Dollar Tree flowers. All right, now I have a fun hack for you. Did you know that you can reduce the glue strands that come off of your glue sticks if you do one thing? So I'm taking some of my glue sticks. I'm going to put them into a large Ziploc bag, which is really challenging to do when you only have one hand because your other hand is holding the camera. And then I'm going to seal the bag and wait for it. I am going to put my glue sticks into the freezer. Yes, this is a simple hack that will help to reduce the amount of glue strands that you have hanging off of the glue once you've put it onto your project. It really works, and I think you should give it a try. And for my next project, I'm going to be using these silicone molds. Now, you can use these for resin or clay, different things like that, even fondant. But did you know that you can also use it for hot glue? Yes, hot glue makes really nice shapes and it's easily removed from the silicone molds and it comes out clean. So I'm going to be using these as embellishments for some picture frames. So I did go ahead and do several different sizes of the hot glue in that beaded type of pattern. And when the hot glue had dried, I cut it down to size for this frame. And again, this is a Dollar Tree frame. And then I secured the hot glue beads to the frame using, you guessed it, some hot glue. For this picture frame, I just did the beads on 2 sides, the 2 shorter sides of the frame. And I also did a larger frame, which you will see in just a minute. And once the glue was attached, I took it outside into the garage, and you guessed it, I gave it a coat of white spray paint. And once the glue had dried, I came back into my craft room and used another Mother Time printable, and then just reassembled the frame. And now I have a pretty picture to help me with my fall decorating, along with this other print from Mother Time. I love how these turned out, and I just wanted to show you how easy it is to make some custom embellishments for Dollar Tree frames. All right, this next project is so much fun. So I'm going to make a riser, and I had a larger size round box. So then I took some half wooden beads and I just secured them with hot glue around the edge. This will make a really nice riser for my project. It definitely gives a little bit of texture and some added dimension to what would have been a lid, or you can also make it a tambourine. Next, I took some pool noodles that I've had forever because I've wanted to do this forever. I'm going to turn these pool noodles into candles. Well, I should say I'm going to make the pool noodles look like candles. So once I figured out the size that I wanted my candles to be, I took some cardboard and I traced out some circles because I'm going to put those on the top of my candles. Then I just cut out the circles. And using my hot glue, I glued a cardboard circle onto each of my pool noodles. When larger wax candles get used, it seems like there's a lot of wax dripping down the sides of the candles, and I think that look is just so pretty. So I used my smaller glue gun and literally just used hot glue to make some strands, which will hopefully represent wax strands, running down the length of the pool noodles. And I did this in several layers of the hot glue. And when my hot glue was all dry, then I took some apple barrel antique parchment, acrylic paint, and I painted my candles, or my pool noodles, depending on what you want to call it. And I really made sure to coat everything. I don't want any of that original color showing through, so I did do several coats of the acrylic paint to make sure it was completely covered. Next, I took some Dollar Tree emergency candles and I just took out that center because I want these candles to look like candles. So I also took some gold tinsel and I twisted that up so I can fit that into the center of the candle. And this was a little bit challenging, but to me, it was worth it. Then I put a little hot glue on the center of my candle and took the candle center, the candle flame, and secured it in place. Now, one thing I found with the pool noodles is the paint will kind of flake off. So what I'm going to do is use some Mod Podge to coat everything. So I coated all of my paint with the Mod Podge. I want these candles to look real. I don't want them to look like pool noodles. And as a happy accident, I did see how cool it was that the Mod Podge would kind of run down the sides of the candles and look like different colors of wax. I think that looks so awesome. And here is the end result. I was able to put the candles onto the riser, and then I just added in a little bit of greenery. I love how these turned out. I have wanted to do this for so long, and I am so glad I finally did it. Now this is a big project. As you can see, I have a big piece of cardboard. And what I did was I had a few of these Dollar Tree mirrors, the little, I think they're 8x10 size mirrors, and I wanted to make a larger mirror. Now the mirror quality of these smaller mirrors is not the greatest. Let me tell you that in advance, but it does make a really nice larger mirror. And I know Pottery Barn has some larger mirrors like this. I can't remember the name of it, but I wanted to have a larger mirror that looked like something that came from Pottery Barn. So first, to make sure that the mirrors were going to stay together, I did use some hot glue to secure everything in place as it is. I'm not going to change anything from the back of these mirrors. and I want to make sure that the mirrors are going to stick. So I use some liquid nails in a caulking gun. Now the liquid nails for projects is incredible. This is way stronger than any adhesive I have ever found. And if you're going to be working with mirrors or anything like this that could potentially fall down, you really want to make sure that you have a strong adhesive. And the liquid nails is perfect for a project like this. So once I had some liquid nails onto my cardboard, I just secured the mirrors in place. Now I have done a mirror project like this before, and you'll actually see that coming up in another project. Now, once the mirrors had lots of time to dry, and I think I let them set for about 3 days, then I wanted to make a hanger. Now, if you're making a hanger to hang something up the size like this is, it's pretty heavy. I just used some string and I tucked it underneath the cardboard in between the mirrors and the cardboard. And then I also used some E6000 to help keep that string in place. Now, once I had that E6000 around it, I did use a big craft stick to push it down underneath to make sure my hanger will stay intact. Then I took some hot glue along with some E6000 and I put that on top of the string that's on the back of the mirror. Next, I used a craft stick to secure it in place, and I did that on both sides of my hanger. Then it was time to clean the mirrors. And here is the end result. I am really happy with how this project turned out, and my husband was happy too because now he doesn't have to have flowers on his side of the bed. So he really liked it, I really like it, and I think it was a fun and easy project. Now for this next project, I found these horse pictures on Temu and they were super affordable, but I wanted to give them a really nice, like aged kind of glamorous looking backdrop. And I found these really pretty brass or gold colored frames at the Dollar Tree. So I removed everything from the frame. And then I did go ahead and clean it using some glass cleaner. Then I decided which pictures I wanted to put in these frames. I put the canvas in the frame, then I just put the backing back onto the frame as well. Making sure I have the hanger on the upside, and then I just use some duct tape to the back of the frame. The duct tape works really well to secure it in place. I think it looks very nice and very elegant and classy, and it is perfect for what I wanted to use it for. This is hanging in my kitchen. I put 2 of the horse images on either side of the mirror. And then I put the 3rd horse above my other cabinet. I think it looks really nice. And there is that other mirror that I was talking about just a few minutes ago. Yes, those are Dollar Tree mirrors. Now, I love florals, and if you've ever looked at Pottery Barn, they have some beautiful faux flower pieces, but they're also very expensive. But they're also very easy to dupe. So what I did was I found these hydrangeas on Amazon, and all of the things that I'm talking to you about, I will have links in the description box below in case you wanted to make these projects for yourself. So I just cut down the stems, and then I also cut off some extra pieces of the stems. So I just want to have some of the green stem itself. Then, using a little bit of hot glue, I secured 2 stems into the bottom of a Dollar Tree square vase. And I didn't have any more of that fake water. So what I did was I did have this crystal clear epoxy resin. So I just mixed equal parts of A and B. And then I gently stirred them together. You don't want to do this too quickly or you can get bubbles. Then I poured my resin into my Dollar Tree vase. This will actually act very similar to the faux water, and it was a lot more affordable actually. So then I just took the hydrangeas and put them into the vase. And I added a few blueberry stems too. And it turned out so well, I decided to duplicate it with these flowers. Now here is my finished project, so the hydrangeas and the blueberries in my resin water. I think the resin worked just as well as the faux water, and it was a lot more affordable. So this is what you're gonna need. You need 3 of these little trays from the Dollar Tree. So first I'm gonna connect these little trays together, and I'm gonna do 2, just like that. And then I'm going to connect the third one to the other end, just like that. And this is gonna be the base of the centerpiece. Now, one extra thing that I'm doing, as you can see, is I'm adding some glue to the seams between each of the boxes. And I like this because then it makes it more like it's one solid piece and not 3 pieces of something put together. So I did it on one side and then I flipped it over and did the same thing on the other side. So I just used some hot glue and then this little tool which fills in that gap. And the next part, pretty easy. We are just going to paint these boxes. Now, these boxes are going to be the tray or the base for our centerpiece. And I'm using burnt umber. I love burnt umber. It kind of goes with everything. And I'm just painting one side and basically doing the outside of the boxes first. And I'm just taking a little bit of time and making sure that all of the sides that could potentially be visible are covered with the paint. And again, this is just burnt umber. I'm not going to add any other colors quite yet. All right, now once my box is all painted, I'm going to go ahead and coat it one more time with the burnt umber. And with the second coat of the paint, you can see that those seams that I covered up, they're not near as visible as they were. So one good coat of burnt umber, and I want this kind of thick because this is where I'm going to start adding in some different paint colors. So I find that it works best for me if the paint is pretty thick and it's got a good base that we can blend all of the colors together. So then I'm just using a tan, I think that's a mocha, and then a cream color. So again, just making sure I have a nice thick coat of that burnt umber paint on the sides. And now here's where we're going to add some dimension. So I'm just adding in that tan mocha color and just basically putting some straight lines, and then I'm adding in the cream. And then just blending everything together. This gives a little bit more depth and dimension to the paint job, I think. And once I did the sides, then I did the inside of each of the boxes. And you probably don't have to do the bottom, but it's better to not take a chance and just paint everything so that just in case something does show, you won't see any of that bare wood. The paint job is done, so now I'm using some Dollar Tree floral foam, and I'm just going to position these in the middle of each of the boxes and secure them with some hot glue. And these are some really pretty magnolia flowers that I found at Walmart, and they were $3.62 per bunch, and I ended up using 3 bunches of flowers. And first I removed the magnolia heads, and then I also removed the leaves because I'm going to be using all of the leaves and all of the flowers for this centerpiece. And then I just started putting in the leaves, and I started with the corners and then just worked my way around the centerpiece so that there's a lot of greenery around the edges. And once I had the greenery done, now it was time to put in the flowers. So one bunch of the flowers, I removed the heads and I just secured them with some hot glue into the floral foam. And I ended up using 2 flower heads on each piece of the foam. And then on another bunch of the flowers, I cut some of them off because I want them to be a little bit taller, and I just stuck them down into the foam. And that is pretty much it. And here is our centerpiece, all complete and finished on our dining room table. Now, if you wanted to, you could probably put some beads on the bottom to raise it up, but I kind of like it just like this. What do you think? We're going to be using Epsom salt and chalk paint. So I'm going to put some silver gray chalk paint into a container along with a couple of spoonfuls of Epsom salt. Then I'm just going to blend it together. It is a little bit thick, so I am going to add a little bit of water to my mixture. I've never used Epsom salt for painting or adding texture to any of my projects, so this one was completely new to me. And I have this cute little plastic container. I think it's a dessert cup that I got from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to paint that with my Epsom salt chalk paint mixture. Now the Epsom salt, it does definitely give it some texture, but it also kind of flakes off. So if you're going to be doing something like this, I would probably recommend using a sealer or Mod Podge so that you don't end up with little pieces of Epsom salt all over and off of your vase. But the chalk paint works really well to coat the plastic, even with just one coat of paint. And that is all I did on this little vase, was just one coat of paint. And then I did come back with a little bit of some kind of a cream colored chalk paint. And I just dry brushed a little bit because I couldn't really see the Epsom salt pieces and I want to be able to see the texture. So I just used this cream colored chalk paint and lightly brushed it all over the dessert cup, or what is now a little vase. This really makes it so you can see the texture of the project. And then I did use that cream colored chalk paint to paint the inside of the dessert cup as well, just in case you could see it. I didn't want it to look just like clear plastic. And here is the finished project. I do like that. I think it turned out really cute. I do wish it had a little bit more texture from the Epsom salt, but lesson learned, I think it looks cute. All right, so for this project, I'm going to be using latex caulking. So this is latex painter's caulk, which is paintable. And I got this container from the Dollar Tree and it's pretty flimsy. It's a plastic container that they had at Halloween time. So I'm just going to take the caulking and I'm going to put that all around the outside of this container. Now this type of painting does get really messy, so I would encourage you to wear some sort of gloves over your hands. And once I had the caulking all onto the container, then I just used my hands and smoothed it all out. If you left it like this and then just painted it afterwards, that would actually look pretty nice too, I think. But I decided I wanted to give it some texture with coffee. I know, this is silly, but I took coffee, not used coffee, this is new coffee, and I put it onto the caulking while the caulking was wet, and then I just kind of smushed and patted the coffee into the caulking. Now, funny fact, this planter that I'm making, it still smells like coffee. And I just worked my way all around the container, patting the coffee into the caulking. And you can see it is kind of turning it a coffee or a tannish color. Now, after I had let that completely dry, this is what it looked like. So I decided to take some chalk paint and see if I could make it look like, you know, one of those Pottery barn vessels, because those look so nice. And that is basically my result that I'm trying to get. Between the caulking and the coffee, you can definitely see the texture of this container. I did want to add a little bit of something extra, so I took a wet paper towel and the Dollar Tree brown oxide paint, and I just kind of dabbed that onto the container. And once I was done with my painting and it was dry, I did coat it with a thick coat of Mod Podge. And here is the finished vessel. I think it looks kind of cool. Not sure how I feel about the brown. I might have gone a little too brown for my own personal taste. So for this craft, we're going to start with a Dollar Tree cutting board. Now I've had a really hard time lately finding these plastic cutting boards in my Dollar Tree, but if you can find them, I would highly encourage you to grab some. So this is just a plastic cutting board and I'm painting it with white chalk paint. I'm going to paint the entire surface with the white chalk paint, and it did take 2 coats of the chalk paint to really make sure that that red was not showing through. And after the paint had dried, I did put a coat of Mod Podge onto the chalk paint because the plastic surface is prone to scratches. So I find that if I use a coat of Mod Podge, it really helps to protect the painted surface. Then I took a little bit of Waverly Gray chalk paint and I used my favorite dry brushing technique to make this look a little bit aged onto the cutting board. And I don't want true brush strokes showing up on the cutting board. I want it to look a little bit older. And by using a dry brush style technique for painting, it really gives a nice finish. I think it gives a really nice farmhouse finish. But my cutting board is not going to be a cutting board. Oh no, this is going to have lots of flowers on it. And I had these bunches of lavender floral. So I picked off some of the flower pieces and then I added a little bit of greenery. Now at this point, I'm just kind of playing around and seeing what this is going to look like. Nothing has been glued down yet. Next, I added in some Dollar Tree baby's breath, or gypsophilia, I think it's called. And when I was happy with that, then it was time to secure all of these floral pieces onto the cutting board. So I started with the lavender first, and using my hot glue gun, I glued each individual piece to the cutting board. And I know that you know how to glue the individual pieces down, but I wanted to show the entire process of this because of the way I did it. I had 5 pieces of the lavender, and the centerpiece is actually higher, and the other pieces are a little bit lower going down. Next, I secured the greenery pieces on, and the final part of the floral is attaching the baby's breath. I did separate the baby's breath into individual stems. I like that look a little bit better. It just looked more cohesive with the lavender and the greenery. Now for the next part, I'm going to be making a burlap pocket for the cutting board. So I had this burlap and I secured that to one side of the cutting board using my hot glue gun. Now I wanted this to look like a pocket, so I glued it in first and then bent over the burlap so that it will look like a pocket. And on the other side, I did the same process. I just folded the burlap over and then hot glued it in place. And because the burlap is pretty see-through, I did repeat the process with another row of the burlap ribbon. And the burlap ribbon that I'm using, it does not have the wire edge. I found that that worked best for this project. Now I did repeat the process as I went down the cutting board, but the burlap was too big, so I did have to cut that ribbon down so it would fit onto the cutting board. And just like the first layer of the burlap, I did 2 layers for the lower section as well. And once the burlap was all secured onto the front of the cutting board, I took some jute twine and I wrapped that around the middle section of the cutting board, so in between the 2 layers of the burlap. And I secured this in place with hot glue and a craft stick on the back of the cutting board, and then I just wrapped the jute twine around the cutting board. Now I wasn't having this all go in the same direction. I wanted it to be spread out a little bit while I was wrapping it. And once I was happy with the jute twine wrapping, then I secured the jute to the back of the cutting board with another piece of craft stick. And for the finishing touch, I did want to add a small bow. So I just did a regular bow out of jute twine and I glued it in place over where I had wrapped the jute. I think that looks so pretty. And this is the finished project. I think it looks adorable. I really am so happy with how this turned out. I do want to make more of these, but again, it's really hard to find these cutting boards lately in my Dollar Tree. For this project, I didn't show you the painting, but I painted this with gray and black chalk paint. And once it was dry, I did give it a coat of Mod Podge. Then when that was dry, I came back with a chip brush and I dry brushed some white chalk paint onto this cutting board. And this is a cutting board that I found at Dollar Tree during the fall. I think it says pumpkins on the back. But I really like this style of a cutting board and I wanted to give it a more farmhouse feel, which is why I painted it. Next, using my Cricut machine, I did cut out some vinyl words to put onto the cutting board. And I've really been enjoying the HBO series of Julia Child, and the Bon Appetit just really makes me happy. So I wanted to add something with Bon Appetit to my kitchen decor with a little bit of a farmhouse flair. So I cut out the letters of Bon Appetit, and then I transferred them onto the cutting board. And if you are just getting into Cricut and vinyl cutting, I do have a lot of videos that give different tips and tricks to help make your beginning Cricut process a little bit easier. And then I just transferred the Bon Appetit to the cutting board. And to finish it off, I wanted to add some greenery to the top of the cutting board. And I was looking for floral pieces that look like rosemary, but I wasn't having any luck. So I had these stems and I went ahead and attached them to the top or the handle of the cutting board. They weren't quite long enough, so I took a little bit more and I just put one extra piece on each side, making it look like they are just long pieces of greenery. And to finish it off, I made a tiny little bow that I could put at the top of the greenery. And there is my cutting board. And here it is hanging up in my kitchen. I love this cutting board, something so simple, but it really gives a little bit of something extra in the kitchen and it fills up an empty space. Now I want to show you how easy it is to make a sign. So easy. I got that at Dollar Tree, and then using my Cricut machine and some black vinyl, I found a font that looks like handwriting. So I made a little sign that says, "Where flowers bloom, so does hope." And I thought, how appropriate is that for spring? So once it was cut out, I just had to secure it to the tile. And there was nothing else that I really needed to do to this sign. But I did create a hanger with wooden beads so I could hang it up and give it a farmhouse feel. I think that is so pretty and so perfect for spring. I've been inspired by Pottery Barn a lot, so this is also a Pottery Barn inspired project. So I found these butterfly stickers at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to take some gold paint and I'm going to brush the edges of the wings of the butterflies with the gold paint. And the stickers are like a cardstock. So they're kind of heavy duty, but they're just cut out butterflies. Next, I had this Dollar Tree sign and I went ahead and removed all of the embellishments. So those little hearts had to go. And using some white chalk paint, I painted the entire frame, the picture, everything white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the wings of the butterflies up so it looks like they're flying. And next I attach them to the back of this frame. And I wanted it to look like the butterflies were flying away. So I started at the bottom corner and then I just worked my way out, adding a few more butterflies with each row. And There it is. That was easy, wasn't it? This is so cute. I really like this little sign. I think it makes a really nice addition to my spring decor. So the first thing I did was take a child's pair of flip-flops and a Valentine sign. And then I removed the foot holder, I guess that's what you can call it, from the flip-flops. And next I took some spackle compound and I just put that all over the front of the flip-flops because I wasn't sure how the paint was going to adhere. So I wanted to make sure I had a nice smooth surface for the paint to stick to. And then using a stem from an artificial flower, I poked it through the holes and removed the excess spackle. Now I'm going to make some new, whatever those things are called, like where your feet go. It holds your feet on the flip-flop. And I want this to look like it's braided. So I'm going to take some jute twine and I'm basically just going to make a long braid. And I think this was probably about 3.5 feet long. And I secured 3 pieces of the jute using masking tape onto my workspace. And then I just braided the cord. Next, I am taking my Valentine sign and a Happy Easter sign, but I'm only going to use the Happy Easter part, and the other part, the stake part of it, I'm going to use that for another project. So I measured how long I wanted this to be, and the Happy Easter is going to be the welcome part, but I do need to cut that down to size. And it was just flipping through and trying to find a paper that would work, and I found the best paper. This is exactly what I wanted, but I decided, you know what, let's look and see if there's another paper that might make a really nice backing. And then I just kind of played around with my sign to see which one I liked better. The whitewash board, that's what we're going to use for the back of our sign. And to make sure it's going to fit, I just used my scissors on one little corner. Then I got my cutting tool and put the paper in there and lined it up so it was nice and even. And presto, I have the exact size that I need for my sign. And next I just secured that paper onto the sign itself using some craft glue. And next I took the hanger and I removed one side of it and I just threaded some wooden beads through because I want the hanger to just be like a beaded hanger. And when I was finished, I just tucked the end back through and it's already secure and I have a beaded hanger for my sign. I used folk art chalk paint and this is in the color Cascade. It's kind of a turquoise color and I just painted the top of the flip-flops. And while that was drying, I took my Happy Easter sign that I had cut down and I painted that with chalk paint as well. And I believe this is oatmeal. And again, this is folk art chalk paint. And I actually got all of these chalk paints in a nice kit that I found on Amazon. And then I used some tan mocha paint, and this is just regular acrylic paint. And I painted the edge of the flip-flop in this brown color. And then I went around the edge of the top of the flip-flop with the brown color as well. And then I used some white paint while that top edge was still wet. And I just kind of added a little bit of white accent all the way around the edge. Using my Cricut machine, I cut out some letters that say welcome, and then I just secured that onto the sign. And there's my welcome sign. We just need to put the braided pieces onto the flip-flop that would hold your foot in, and I still don't know what that's called. So I cut down the braided jute that we had made earlier, and I secured 2 separate pieces onto the flip-flop. And to make sure the braid didn't come apart, I did use some hot glue on either end. And then I just put some hot glue into those holes and secured the braid. So once I had my flip-flops done, then I just kind of played around to see how I wanted them to sit on my sign. And then I also used the welcome sign to see where I wanted it to go. Then I secured the flip-flops to the sign with hot glue. And then I took some Spanish moss and put that over top of the flip-flops. This will be showing behind the welcome sign. I like it because it gives a little extra depth of feel to the sign. And then using some more hot glue, I secured the welcome sign on top of the flip-flops and over top of the Spanish moss. Look at how cute that is. This is probably my favorite project. So I have these vases, this tiny glass one, this big one that looks like a really pretty leaf. Ooh, this one looks like it has roses on it. And then this little guy. So I wanted to make these over so that I can use them all the time in my decorating. And I thought I would try to see if I could make this vase look like it's wrapped in rope. So I just took some twine and using my hot glue gun, I just secured the twine to the little vase. The most difficult part was starting this out. So I did use hot glue around each of the 4 sides of this little vase as I wrapped it around. And I was very careful just to make sure I got it just at the very base of the little vase. Once I had it started, then I just carefully wrapped that twine all the way around the vase. And it was a little time consuming, and I did use my hot glue gun as I worked my way up, not all the way around the vase, but every few turns I would apply a little bit more hot glue to keep it being wound up tightly and so that I was sure it would stay in place. And I just continued this process all the way to the top of the vase. And around the top edge, this was a little bit tricky, but I did put hot glue all the way around it, and then I secured the twine. And this part of this project is so easy. So I just took some satin finish spray paint and I spray painted the other 3 vases this white satin color. I really like that satin finish. It doesn't look too glossy, and I really like how it picks up the pattern of each of these vases. That is one thing that I really like about doing my own decorator projects is spray paint. Spray paint is so helpful, and you can really transform something just with a can of spray paint. I even spray painted the twine to make it look more white. So while my vases were drying, I came back inside and I had this little sign from the Dollar Tree. So I went ahead and removed that paper XOXO. And I really like the size of this, so I'm gonna make this into a little tiny succulent garden. So I just had these little wooden beads and I just attached a wooden bead to each corner of the bottom of the frame. And the wooden beads on the bottom will be like the feet, which will help to give this an elevated appearance and not make it look like a picture frame. Then I took it outside and I had this spray paint and I wasn't going to use it for anything else. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and use this spray paint for my little succulent garden. So this is the container of the garden itself. And I thought this color would look pretty against the green of the succulents. And it doesn't matter that there's still a little bit of that material that's left in the center of the frame because it's going to be covered up. So that is not a big deal. And once that was dry, I brought it back inside. And I have this little box of succulents because they're just succulents that I've been collecting. So I just went through and found some that I thought would look really nice as a part of a succulent garden. And then I just kind of trimmed the bottoms off so that it would make it easier for me to attach them to my garden box. So then I just went ahead and started playing with the different succulent pieces for my little display. Here are my beautiful little vases. They are all nice and dry. I really like how they turned out, and even the twine covered one. So then I had these greenery pieces, and I believe I got this one at the home store. It's kind of like Home Goods and places like that. But I got these and I hadn't really used them for anything. So I was like, you know what? These would be perfect for my little vases. I just want to have greenery. Isn't that cute? And I had the same thing with these little fern fronds, and I just kind of separated them out and then put them into one of the vases as well. I thought it would look really nice with that vase that almost looks like it has like a leaf pattern on it. And then I had these, and I believe I got this greenery at Hobby Lobby when it was on clearance. Look at how cute that is. Here are all of my projects, and they are actually being used right now in my home decorating. I really like the simplicity of the white and the green, along with a little bit of some black and gold accents on these shelves that I have by my front door. Like I said, super cute, super affordable, and super easy. And then I have my adorable little succulent garden that I was able to make pretty easy and pretty cheap too. Now I'm going to make a shelving unit that I can put onto my shelving unit. Does that make sense? So I found these signs at Hobby Lobby actually, and they were 97 cents. Then I took a couple of the Dollar Tree signs, shelf sitters, and cut them down so that they would be the same size. Then I used these little wooden bins from the Dollar Tree, and using some Dollar Tree wood glue, I just put wood glue into the bin. Now they have those bins, they come with stars or hearts and different designs, but as long as the bins are the same size, that's all that matters, because you won't see those little open areas. You really need to make sure that they're all the same size, even if they have like the same thing, like the stars, they can still be different sizes. Then I just took those shelf sitters and I put 2 of them into the bottom of those wood trays. Next, I took more of the wood glue and I added that to the top of the wood tray. And then I secured 2 more trays on top of the first level of trays. I did go ahead and put some wood glue on the inside, and then I grabbed those Hobby Lobby shelf sitter signs and I put 2 into the 2 wood trays. Making sure everything was even, or as even as it could be. I took the remaining 2 shelf sitters and I put those on top of the second level of the wood trays. Then to keep everything secure and make sure that glue could set up, I did add some tiles just for some weight. And once it was dry, I used some Waverly chalk paint to paint everything white. Now, if you wanted to, you could use spray paint, but it's been my experience that when you use spray paint on wood like this, it seems to soak into the wood and it takes more spray paint. So using chalk paint or acrylic paint, you could probably even use like Kills 2 primer. That's a water-based primer to get a nice white finish on the shelves. And the Waverly chalk paint worked really well. Here is the end result. Oh my gosh, I am so happy with this. Isn't it adorable? It offered 3 more shelves that I could use on one shelf. It was actually really easy to make, and I think it is a nice addition to offer some more storage on my shelving unit. Now, this was a larger plastic basket that I found at the Dollar Tree. I think this is the largest thing I've ever seen there. So I wanted to create some more storage. So I have this thick cotton rope that I bought on Amazon, and what I'm going to do is wrap it all the way around that plastic tub. And I started the rope at the bottom of the plastic tub and just worked my way all the way around. Now the hot glue actually worked really well on the low setting, and it stayed warm for me to be able to do large portions of the covering and then just bring the rope down onto the glue. And I just worked my way around, going higher and higher onto the basket with the rope. Now I didn't go all the way to the top. I did have enough rope. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get all the way to the top, but I just left a little bit of a lip. So literally about 2 inches was left, just the plastic container. And there is my rope basket so far, but I'm not done. I found this pillowcase at the Dollar Tree and I'm flipping it inside out, and then I'm going to put it into the plastic tub. By turning it inside out, then I'm not going to have the seams on the outside. And then I just folded it down around the top of the tub. That way you can't see any of the plastic. And I wanted to give this a more finished look, so I added some hot glue to the top, right around that edge where the rope stopped, and I just added one more layer of rope. Now right in the center of the front of my basket, I left enough room so that I could tie a knot into the rope. So I just tied a knot. I believe it's called a square knot. If I'm wrong, please let me know. And then I let the extra pieces just hang down the front. And this rope actually frays very easily, so I decided to just tie a knot on each end that was hanging down. After I made this, I thought, you know what, this would be very pretty storage, like just to have a basket somewhere. I'm using it in my craft room, but I think this is really pretty and it would be really nice in any type of decorating. I love these small terracotta pots. They're so cute. And I had this little candle holder, so I thought I wanted to make this a little bit taller. So I just took some hot glue and put it onto the bottom of the terracotta pot. And then I secured the candlestick to the pot. And once it was dry, I took this folk art sagey green paint, and I also took this salt wash. This is probably one of my favorite things to work with and craft with right now. So I put the paint in first, and then I added 1 scoop of the salt wash. And what this does is it gives it a really thick texture. So then I just painted that onto the terracotta pot and the candlestick as well. Now, if you lift up and kind of pounce it down, that's going to give you more texture of this paint. And it's definitely a thick medium to work with, but it's really fun and it gives a lot of texture and really can make new things look aged and old. Now, once it was dry, I came back with some white chalk paint and I lightly brushed that all over the surface of my new little planter. This is where you can really see the texture kind of materialize. And sometimes making these little accents are just what you need for something a little bit extra in your decorating. And you can see I have this cute little bird that I got at Goodwill, and I put a candlestick on the bottom of him as well. So I have another accent piece for my decorating. Now, once my terracotta pot was dry, I did take some chiffon ribbon that I found on Amazon, and I just tied that around the center of the pot. I did want it to have a bow, so I made a simple bow, and I put that on top of the ribbon that I had already put on the planter. And here is the finished planter, mini planter, I guess, and the little bird. This is a really nice accent piece. It took no time at all to make, and I love how it turned out. I hope you found this video inspiring and you're ready to get crafty and make some new decoration pieces for your home. And if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would click that subscribe button. And if you click the bell notification, you can get alerts every time I have a new video coming out. I have so many new ideas for DIY projects, outdoor projects, and of course Dollar Tree decor that I can't wait to share with you. And if there's something you've been dying to try or you would like to see in an upcoming video, leave a comment down below and let me know. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Happy crafting!